Well, it looks like Sucker Punch does not want to disrupt their graphics, which is one of the best looking games that I've ever seen before. They don't want to disrupt it with all these waypoints and shit like that. So there's been basically reports about the PlayStation 4, excuse me, Ghost of Tsushima exclusive not having waypoints to tell you where to go. Which, I mean, there was a lot of people that were complaining about it anyway. The funny thing about it is they say that you can explore the island's lush environments without the help of waypoints. Now, here's the thing, right? Um, a lot of people complained about having waypoints and being Ubisoft, basically. You know, Ubisoft has a ton of fucking waypoints all just thrown all over your screen. And people were like, well, you know, people wanted a challenging game and stuff like that. But then you read on Twitter, it was funny. Um, they're like, oh, well, Sony fanboys are complaining about. No one's complaining about that. I'm a Sony fanboy, not an idiot, but I'm a Sony fanboy, and I'm looking at the shit on Twitter. Nobody complained about that shit. Let's get that out the way. No one even said anything about it at all. They just said that there's no waypoints. I don't know who. I don't. It was something that happened that somebody reported where they had a problem with the waypoints. I don't think it was a Sony fan anyway, or maybe it was a concerned Xbox. Who the fuck knows? But that is one of the things. I'm glad that they're doing it that way. Some other news about Ghost of Tsushima. Time in the story will pass as you explore the titles, right? Telling you how much time it's been since the invasion began, like days gone to me. That's what it seems like. But it also seems kind of weird that they worded it that way. Is it going to be day and night cycles? I know it's concerning for me. I will say that because I love day and night cycles. I feel like that was a big thing that Death Stranding was missing. This will be the first time that Sucker Punch actually did this, so I'm hoping that there's day and night cycles. But there's been a lot of news about this game in general. There's other shit too, like how exploration is actually working. So exploration might be pretty easy and free, but once you reach groups of enemies, things become much more focused. Clashes are swift and decisive. Likewise, you can use your grappling hook to sneak through enemy camps unseen, dropping down to attack the people or sneak up on them from behind. We even seen that one scene where he stabbed somebody through that little paper ass wall or door. Your character also has some gadgets like sticky bombs, fire arrows that can help him spread a disarray through an enemy camp, or disarray, whatever the fuck they're trying to quote. I don't know what the fuck it is, but they have all that shit there. What I could basically come to a conclusion with is people need to understand that Sucker Punch has come from, you know, the kind of sneaking genre when they made Sly Cooper, and they also had like Traversal on lockdown. Sly Cooper was actually had a lot of, it was basically almost open world. They just didn't have day and night cycles. You can climb anywhere you wanted, which they kind of adopted that with the Infamous games. So that's not even a problem. I am curious about how the enemy AI is going to work, since this is a more realistic game. So I'm curious. I'm definitely curious to see. They got the graphics. You know, it's basically locked down. The graphics are beautiful. They got that down packed. I just need to see the enemy AI and how hard it is. Hopefully they can make it an open world Souls game, is what I kind of wanted. I mean, God of War was kind of Soulsy, but it was pretty much linear. You know what I mean? It was more open than the other ones, but it was linear. Which brings me to my last piece of news, what goes to Tsushima. And that's the delay, how it could possibly be delayed. So I've been hearing that Ghost of Tsushima will be delayed until August, but that also takes The Last of Us Part 2 into Ghost of Tsushima's territory, which will be, I forgot when Ghost of Tsushima is supposed to be coming out. June, I think it was, sometime in June. So supposedly The Last of Us is going to take literally Ghost of Tsushima's place. And then August will give free reign to Ghost of Tsushima, which will lead us into next generation at that point in time. I don't have a problem with that specifically, but I mean, there's nothing really telling, you know, there's no room, there's no proof to this, and I'm fine with that. But people need to understand this, that all of the delays are happening. It's fucking up every business's plan, especially my own company that I work for. in Sony's case, they don't want this to encroach on PS5 because the PS4 is still selling and has all those subscriptions. So you can just pretty much rest that rumor that they're going to put it on the PS5. So it'll be there, but it's definitely not going to take its place. But let's move on to our next subject. I apologize for our last podcast about the PlayStation 5 news about the variable rate shading, which was a feature that supposedly Xbox had, and the PlayStation 5 didn't because Sony cheaped out on it. I wanted to talk more and more about it, but everything was so disorganized, and I really apologize for that. I really do. So here's the thing. I got some actual Twitter clip of what the developer was actually saying. It was some other stuff too, but let's get into the actual clip, which he basically states: variable rate shading is a nice feature for saving cycles, but VRS optimization capability doesn't hold a candle to the geometry engine capabilities. VRS without geometry engine means that you're still processing vertices you can and should eliminate in the early stages to begin with. More free compute and more memory when you do this, right? So I'll explain this. I don't know if you guys remember Horizon Zero Dawn when the developer finally showed everyone that they actually call out or delete things that you're not looking at. It was like a whole like cone shape that was your field of view. So if you weren't in that field of view, everything else was barely rendered or not rendered at all. There's some things built into the PS5s and Xbox One, the Xbox Series X hardware to automatically delete things that are not in your view. Now, what variable rate shading is in the center of your screen or in places where a person typically isn't looking. It is rendered with less detail. So usually on the fringes of your screen, not necessarily blurry to you. Some things are probably imperceivable to the regular person. But this is a way for them to actually, they still render it, they still paint the polygons, is what the vertices mean, but they don't paint them with the accuracy or the detail unless you're in the middle of the screen, essentially. So if it's all the way on the corner of the screen, it won't have the extra layers or it won't be as accurate as in the center of the screen, essentially, right? So what the guy is basically talking about is, why even have the variable rate shading at all if you don't have to render the shapes, period? You can just not render anything at all and just save a whole bunch. That was one of the issues. The other portion of the issue was quite simply that, well, it does have it, but they can't call it that because there's patents and things of that nature. You can go on Twitter and you can look this up. Just look up variable rate shading and PlayStation 5. There's patents that they just can't do. They really can't. On a different note, though, do you guys remember the fucking Spider-Man the leaked footage for the PS5 and how it loaded it basically in under a second? Well, apparently that was the slow dev kit. So the games are going to be rendered at a much faster clip. And I always thought about that shit too. I mean, yeah, the PS4 version of Spider-Man was loading fast, but that's last generation. What about now? So we can actually, without a shadow of a doubt, know that our games for the PS5 will load about that same type of speed, if that's the case, because you have more data to actually load. And now, since we know that it was slower, now it can load all that data at once, which is pretty fucking cool. But let's move on to our next subject. Well, Bloomberg is actually doing what Jason Schreier has been doing, and that's basically providing leaks. So some discerning news, or some discouraging news rather. Bloomberg basically reported that the next generation consoles, essentially, but specifically the PlayStation 5, will launch with far fewer units of the PS5 in the first year than the PS4 launch. Apparently, COVID-19 affected their PR plans, and that Sony forgo a press conference for the PS5 and release date. So they were going to plan that shit apparently, but shit happened, and they really can't plan it. It was never going to be any kind of social situation. Probably before it happened, before the COVID-19 really started, it was probably a case where it was like that. But now they gotta, basically do digital, not digital, but like fucking online Nintendo Direct type things. But what's more concerning to me is the price for the PlayStation 5. Developers basically believe that it's going to be a $499 or $549 console. Um, and then they may cut the price for the PS4 and PS5. Here's the thing: on a pure business sense, yes, that's what it looks like they may do. You know what I'm saying? Because the demand is going to be super high, and they're not going to be able to cover it, especially since China is making their consoles. That's number one. Number two, they don't want to cut into the PlayStation 4's profits. There's a lot of people that have PS4s, and they are paying for the PlayStation Plus. So they don't want to cut into that too. So there's a lot of things to think about. So it's possible that they are not going to waste money on the PlayStation 5 price cuts to try to be aggressive with it, just to slow down people from doing it. Now, Sony basically created an empire with their exclusives, so they know that people want their exclusives. It's apparent. You know what I'm saying? They focused on that. So with the PS2 to 3, Sony wasn't really making exclusives like that. Now they are. With the PS3, they got that moniker of making exclusives. So now they earned that right. They earned that right. Now people want it, and it's like the Marvel, basically. They have their castle and empire and stuff like that. But from what I could see, it's probably going to be $500, $499. And it wasn't going to be like that before, but COVID-19 fucked everything else. But hey, you got your stimulus check. What is it, $1,200? Use some of that shit to buy a PlayStation 5. And it's not going to be easy to get. I'm pretty sure of it. It wasn't easy to get a PS4. But let me know in the comments what you liked or disliked about the video. And if you liked it, a sub will be appreciated. Peace out, guys, and thank you.